Hello, this is Andrew Grease, your spray equipment expert from QSpray.com. Today I'm talking about some of the most common purchasing mistakes we see when people buy pest control and landscape power sprayers. So I'm going to share some mistakes that you really do want to avoid, because making some of these mistakes when you're purchasing a power sprayer means wasted money, wasted time, missed customer appointments, lots of frustration. And so if you spend a little time up front to fully understand and document your requirements, you can really save yourself a lot of headaches. So the first purchasing mistake is, don't try to buy a sprayer that does everything. Figure out what 80% of your work is and solve that problem. And the example is this Swiss Army knife, which can do a million things, but it does them all poorly. So figure out what the 80% is, buy a power sprayer for that 80%, and then figure out the other 20% or 10%. Figure out another way to do it. And the most common example we see is, a customer will call us and they do general pest control, and they need a sprayer for residential general pest control. And we always ask, how will the sprayer be used? Are there any other uses or applications? And then they say, oh yeah, I need it to spray some 50-foot tall trees. Well, how often do you spray those tall trees? Once a year. If you buy a sprayer that can spray 50-foot tall trees, you've just, probably doubled your cost. You've increased your maintenance challenges. You're probably going to be putting down a lot more chemical, and you're buying a sprayer that just is not right for general pest control. So buy the sprayer for general pest control. Figure out another way to get the trees done. Be a lot happier doing your job. The next thing to think about is your spray equipment an expense or an investment. Expenses we always try to minimize expenses. And investments, if you view it as an investment, it'll help you make you money. And so you view it a little bit differently. So the second most common problem we see is customers buying solely on price, because frankly, purchase price is the tip of the iceberg when it comes to your power sprayer. The biggest cost or the biggest expense is what it costs you every day, whether it hurts your productivity or helps your productivity. You only pay the purchase price once, but that productivity price you're paying every day. And so when you buy solely on price, you're basically buying problems. Here's a perfect example. This is a really poorly built and poorly designed sprayer. We got a cheap tank fitting that's not repairable, cheap nylon fitting, cheap hose, cheap clamp. And here's what happens. This is not the same sprayer, but the same type of sprayer. I believe what happened here was the customer hit the brakes and something like a backpack fell against the tank. It broke the fitting. They spilled 50 gallons of chemical. It broke the tank. This tank is not repairable. And they were down for weeks because they bought this. They didn't remember who they bought this from. Our tank didn't fit. They didn't want to revise the frame. And so they were down for weeks until they could figure out where they got the tank from. They didn't save any money here. This was an expensive problem. Here's an example of a customer that made an investment. This was a landscaper that wanted a sprayer that could do weed pre-emergent, weed post-emergent, and fertilization. So they got 3 tanks, 4 hose reels, so they had 2 guys doing pre-emergent, 3 pumps, 3 motors, very, very efficient, very effective. Before they bought the truck, they asked us to figure out what size bed they needed, so we drew it out and figured out what size bed, because we not only wanted to fit the equipment, but we wanted to make it so that everything was easy to service. You had plenty of room to get to everything. And so this was a good investment for them. It made them a ton of money. I'm not suggesting everyone needs a sprayer like this. I'm just suggesting that if you think of it as an investment, you might make a better decision. It could be as small a decision as, hey, Joe's getting a little bit older. Why don't we get him an electric hose reel, and maybe Joe will be able to work for us a few extra years. The last mistake we see, and we see this frequently, is customers buy the wrong equipment. Either the wrong components, the wrong type of pump, poor design. The design is bad, so it takes longer to do your job, or it's hard to service. We see this all the time. Here's a perfect example. This was a sprayer that was brought into us. The pump needed to be serviced, and I'm looking at this and I say, "How do you put gas in this engine?" And the tech said, "Well, I have to unroll the hose." So every day, just to put gas in it, he's spending 10, 15 minutes to unroll and then re-roll the hose. So I don't care what this sprayer cost them, it was too much. You want to make sure you're buying the right equipment, and to do that, you want to get input from everyone who's involved, and that certainly means the users. Don't forget about the folks doing the maintenance. You want to fully document your requirements. You want to work with trusted suppliers. The supplier that provided that sprayer in the last picture where you couldn't put the gas in was not a trusted supplier. They did not do their customer any favors with that spray rig. Make sure you talk to everyone who's going to be using the sprayer or touching the sprayer before you buy. So if you do these things, you'll reduce your downtime, you'll reduce your repair expense, reduce missed appointments, reduce problems and headaches. So when you do need power sprayers, parts, or kits, please visit us at QSpray.com. I hope this was valuable. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day.